they don't want us playing the game for a reason. Then they've caused these glitches, to stop us from playing the game. I think.
Forget Rockstar, dude.
Yeah.
It was all the way at the top. It was Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, yeah. The glitches are implanted. That's crazy. You never know. We're going to talk about Mindseye and the project itself. How are you feeling with it all at the moment? Is it a bit up and down, or is it up, or are you still happy? Yeah.
I mean, it's had a complicated reception because whenever you work on something for many years, regardless, I work with good people who are trying to do a good thing, and so like there's a pride in games are hard, man. Games are hard to produce, just
Mm,
like films. It's a really huge undertaking to get one off the ground at all. So I'm proud of the people that I worked with. It's a shame that the gameplay in particular has received such negative reception and such yeah, I mean, in terms of bugs, as a gamer myself, I completely understand the frustration.
mm,
Like there's no to me as a consumer and as a gamer, there's a shared frustration and like why would you as a company release something that seemed to not be ready in that way?
mm,
Um, in terms of people's opinions about the gameplay itself, I'm a big proponent of like everybody has an opinion, everyone's entitled to have different tastes, to like different things. So if you put the bugs aside, like whether or not people are into it, that's between them and them, right?
yeah.
Because for example, I'm not such a big fan of let's say like a multiplayer shooter like Call of Duty or something like that, or like
Mm,
when my friends were all into PUBG. It's
mm,
just not my thing. So even if the gameplay is great, I'd be like, yeah, it's fine. It's a shooter. You run around, you do the thing, the map shrinks, whatever.
yeah.
I don't care for that kind of gameplay. So
Yeah.
in that, I have no response other than like, enjoy what you enjoy. In
Mm,
terms of the story and the cinematics, I actually
incredible.
find there's a couple of glitches that I find pretty amusing. Like
Yeah.
there was one that was circling about Seb and like how sort of um, I don't know, like H.R. Geiger. He like
Mm,
turns into this weird creature because the thing stretches his face out all funny.
mm,
I actually kind of like that stuff. Obviously, it's not on purpose. That's a bug.
mm,
Um, but I find that amusing rather than being disappointed or frustrated by that. It's just kind of like, all right. And I loved working on it.
mm,
I loved the people that I was with. The cast itself was great. Everyone showed up and um, gave their all and was a decent human being. We had no assholes, which I'm really
mm,
grateful for. Um, and I had a blast working on it. Builder Rocket Boy treated me very well. They were very kind to me.
mm,
In terms, as an actor, you know that you don't have necessarily as much creative direction as you'd like. It's not
mm,
like I go in there and I go, this is what I think the story should be.
mm,
Um, but they did allow me opportunity to give feedback, and I did when I felt appropriate about uh, one, many of the developers were from the UK, and so they'd ask questions that are like, does this feel American? Does this feel blue collar? Does this feel like a soldier? Does this feel like something that someone from this background would say? And there were many times where I was like, no, and then they change it. And I
mm,
appreciate that. I appreciate they were open and receptive to the feedback that was like, actually, that doesn't sound like us in the
mm.
States. That sounds very British or
Okay.
very insert thing. Um,
You're allowed to improvise on the game then, so that's good. Yeah.
yeah, and allowed to have a creative voice
Mm,
within the structure. Um, it's not like I was sitting in the writer's room. I think ideally, like because I have the mind of someone who writes and directs as well, that would be cool if I ever had a
mm,
project, whether it was game, a TV show, a film, whatever, where you get to sort of be on the ground floor of creating the narrative as well.
mm.
But they treated me very well and they gave me a lot of freedom to do my thing. And I did that to the best of my ability.
I mean, the cutscenes are still outstanding because I did have a little go on it, and it is like amazing of what it has sort of like potential. Do you know what I mean? It still is potential. It still is a really good game that can be played. Did you expect the outcome of the game um, when it
No,
released? Yeah.
to be honest,
Did
like
the
from
team?
a,
Do you
you're
think?
thinking narrative wise,
Mm.
like the end of the
Yeah,
story.
like
Is
I
that what you
mean,
mean?
just oh no, I mean just like all of it, like the quality and the glitches and the yeah problems with the game. Did you expect all that and the team?
No, no. And I mean, I narrative and gameplay is kept very separate, right? Like, so I'm working with the cinematographer, the on-set director, the writers.
Mm.
It's not, I'm introduced to the team mostly because I ask. I'm like, hey, I'd love to meet the people who are developing slash working on the physics or, um, folks who play with my model and my appearance and all that sort of stuff. But it's not as though I don't see them day to day. So I get very little feedback or
Mm.
information in terms of like, how is all of that going, right? You
Mm.
focus on just like any large enterprise. I have no idea actually how many employees, but in that building day to day, there were, at least 200 people.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not as though I'm interacting with each of those people on a day to day basis, getting little updates that are like, here's how everything's going. And so when the game came out, obviously you're very excited. It's just this moment that's been years in the making. And then to receive the feedback that was like, oh, this is glitchy. And it's
Mm.
glitchy. And I'm being like, wait a minute, what? That's not what I was
Yeah.
expecting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think not for nothing, there's something to be said about the model of studios releasing these games. I don't know whether it's not a lack of QA. I met the QA testers and they seem competent at their job. But
Mm.
for whatever reason, the company deciding to release something that has these issues, um, and then sort of taking care of it post mortem, post release. I obviously we were not the first game to do that. Like a very notorious example is Cyberpunk, and there have been others.
Mm.
Um, and as a gamer, as a consumer, I don't love that. I
Mm.
don't love that model. I don't like that um, moving forward. I'm not a business person, so
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
also want to be very clear that I have no idea why that decision gets made. I
Mm.
will just say that from a consumer perspective, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, I think it does more long-term harm than good to your reputation
Mm.
to release something that feels like it is in a state of less than 100% and
Mm.
then charge 100% of a price,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think you have to be honest with your consumer. And in fact, like I, as a player, would rather be told this is in beta. Like I know you've been waiting for this for a long time. But this is a beta release of this game. And so whether it's you get to play it for free on some sort of invite list
Mm.
or it's $20, $30, $15, what insert price. I don't know what the model would be, but like it's a much smaller fee. Know that this shit isn't done. No, it's not done. So please come interact with our thing, give us feedback, but no, it's not done. And obviously beta is a thing like that
Mm.
is a already pre-established practice. And so I'm not sure what drives companies to essentially carry out beta testing like without calling it that.
Yeah.
Um, I, as a consumer, would rather be told would rather have someone be upfront because then I know what I'm signing up for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but
Do
that's just
you
me.
do you think they knew about the problems within the game before they released it? Do you think they were aware that it would be the turn
I
out?
can't really speak to that to be honest.
Mm.
I like truly don't have the day-to-day access or conversations with the higher ups
Mm.
like that.
Mm.
Um, Everything that I saw at the stage of development in which I saw it, because I've been on this project since 2021. It's been a long
Mm.
time. It's been 4 years. They were already developing. This is how it always works. Like I'm brought into the process a few years down the line of them already having worked some things out from a narrative and from a gameplay perspective. It's not like
Mm.
I'm brought in day one, right?
Yeah.
And so they'd already been working on it for many years. And as I was being shown things, let's say a year into the process, 2 years into the process, 2.5 years, all that, everything for the time period where I was like, oh, there's like 3 years left. This looks great. Like this
Mm.
looks fun. Yeah, yeah, it's a little rough for like the animation here is not perfect, or like, yeah, that was a little janky in this part, but there's another 2 years. Like this looks good for where it's at, right?
Mm.
Um, and so I have no idea, and I have no idea what their process is. That's not something
Yeah.
that they share with me, and nor doesn't really make sense. I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, but it is not a necessary part of my job to be shown that.
Mm.
And so I don't push for it because that I'm not the game director. I'm not the gameplay designer. I'm not the gameplay. I'm
Of
not even a
course.
QA
Yeah. Yeah.
tester.
Yeah.
Um,
Why do you think the gamers are really hating on it though? Do you think it's because there's a Rockstar, games worker working for them, or do you think it's, an ex-producer from Rockstar Games that, is doing the game, or do you think it's just because it doesn't work at the moment? If that makes sense.
I
I don't know if it was the
like
producer or director from
yeah,
Rockstar Games.
it's the CEO of the company.
Yeah, so yeah, okay.
I think it's, like everything, it's mixed, right? I'm sure there's some amount of people that whenever you leave a pre-established franchise, they're going to associate you with that. Expect the same thing,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Um, Rockstar has, and that franchise in particular has a ton of money. You know what I
Mm,
mean? They, to use the phrase colloquially, they have more money than God. Like they have the ability to throw money at a problem in the same way that a major movie studio could, right?
mm,
And to expect the same level of budget or problem solving from a studio that is brand new and much smaller as of now, right? It's just not realistic. That's not a realistic consumer expectation.
mm,
Um, and at the same time, as a consumer and as a gamer, like I said, I would share the frustration. I do share the frustration of being like, this game is glitchy. Yeah, I don't care who you are. Like, I
mm,
don't care if this is your first game, your 100th game. If it's glitchy, it's glitchy, right?
mm,
So, and there's multiple truths because there are going to be people who have a vested interest, just because they have a least. It's just like Kendrick versus Drake, for
mm,
example. Like, some people are going to hate on Drake because they love Kendrick. Some people are going to hate on Drake because they actually just hate his music. Some people are going to hate on Drake because it's fun.
mm,
All of that is fair game. For the record,
yeah.
I'm not a Drake fan myself. It's because, particularly, I don't like his music. It's not
Yeah.
because of like, I don't care where he's from or what he did before. I just happen to not vibe with his stuff.
Mm,
And I'll be honest, I think that I don't know that it necessarily matters. Like, why? Well,
mm,
as someone who creates things for a living and views himself as an artist, like, I don't view myself as a worker,
mm,
even though acting is my job. I'm an artist. So I care more about the process of creating something and then the conversation that happens afterwards than I do about micromanaging people's responses. So, for example, I would be more interested in asking that question to the person who doesn't like the game than anyone involved. I don't really care. Like, for me
mm,
specifically, I don't care about my own opinion as to whether or not I think people are hating on Leslie because he is who he is or hating on the game because of him. I care more about asking them that question
mm,
because I would like to say, "Hey, are we able to divorce the the product from the person? And if so, what about the product? Because in the future, as an artist, as someone who cares deeply about what he makes, what can I fix for you in the future for the things that I make? Not fixes in patches and fixes in like how we are talking about, quote, fixing a game, but like, how can I, as an artist, be more mindful of what I put out in the future? So if there are things that you don't respond to that I feel like are within my control. So if someone was like, I feel like the actor who played Jacob just didn't get the emotional gravitas of this story, I can work on that. If someone just says, I think that guy was kind of a punk, I can't work on that. I don't, I'll put it frankly, Lloyd, I don't care about that opinion. There's not enough nuance in that opinion for me to do anything about it. It's not an action item. And the reality is, like, you're entitled to that opinion just as much as the other person.
yeah.
A consumer or a human is entitled to that subjective experience just as much as someone else who I might actually be like, oh, I can interact with that. Like, that means something to me. Let me do. So in the age of the internet, I think it's a fool's errand for me to try and figure out like why are people hating on it? The response is like they are, and they are vocal enough to let you know at least consciously why they are hating on it. They're saying something like, it's all these glitches. I think the narrative has plot holes. I think this, I think that. And other people who are saying, I love it. I'm having a great experience. And actually, I'm not experiencing the glitches. I'm not experiencing this, that, or the other. I actually don't mind that there's like a limited selection of weapons. I like the driving. I like this stuff. I love your character. Like,
Mm,
I, as an individual, I'm lucky enough that if someone seeks me out to engage with me, it is often positive. It is
mm,
often someone who wants to say something kind, and about how they have enjoyed their experience. I'd also be blind to ignore the voices that aren't coming to seek me out specifically on Instagram or on other forms of social media to say, "Hey, I'm not having a good time," or like, "This is what I find wrong," and blah 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 blah.
mm,
I think it would be sort of, ostriches like bury their head in the sand.
yeah.
Like, to ignore that entirely is different than saying I can't let that affect my self-worth or like how I view my own contribution to this project. But to be like, well, it doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. Those people are just wrong. Is like, I mean, you're trying to get people to buy a product. So it might behoove you to
Mm,
listen to the consumer base just to see the responses. And if you agree, for example, let's take the premise, glitches aren't great,
mm,
right? The consumer does not want glitches in their product.
mm,
I think most people would agree that that's by and large like a pretty ubiquitous statement, right?
mm,
So if that is true and people are telling you there are glitches, listen. Like that might behoove you if you want to sell the thing that you're selling to listen,
mm,
right? At the same time, if some people are saying, I think the narrative is doing too much. They're going all over the place. There's robots, there's this, there's that, without spoilers. There are too many things in one narrative, right?
mm,
Some people might say that. Other people might say, I love how much is going on in this narrative. Some people might say, I don't want any more ex-army, blah, 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 blah. It's boring. It's been done a bunch of times. Other people might say, that's really meaningful to me. I love that.
mm.
Those are subjective experiences
Yeah.
that as an artist, like me as an individual, and then the company as a whole, as a creative institution, you can decide whether or not you agree with that. Those are things that are like, okay, cool, we might just have different tastes. I can't please all people. So
Mm,
if somebody wants to say that, for example, Jacob is not hard enough, or Jacob is too hard, or Jacob is not sensitive enough, Jacob is too sensitive, like these are things that I hear and go, do I agree with you or not? If I don't agree with you, thank you for your opinion. Respectfully, I'm not going to change my shit.
mm,
I'm not because I don't agree with you. But I'm also not going to tell you you're wrong, like because you're not. That's your experience of this thing that I am doing. Now, if I had created a character that I thought, for example, was super gruff and gritty and dark and thick, and then everyone's like, "Man, that guy's kind of a pansy. That guy's like really overly sensitive." Then, as an artist, there's a disconnect, right?
mm.
I think I'm doing blank, and everyone else is receiving it as I think I'm doing X and they're receiving it as Y,
Yeah.
that I need to reflect on
Mm,
because then my self awareness isn't matching up with what the audience is receiving. I'm
right.
saying I created this broody, fucked up guy, and they're saying, yeah, you kind of created a lollipop.
Okay.
Then, like,
Yeah.
that's on me, right? I need to
Mm,
examine that. But if I wanted to create a lollipop because I thought that was interesting for the character, and people are like, you're a lollipop, I don't like it. Then I go, oh, I don't really
mm,
give a shit. Thank you. You nailed it. Nailed it in one. We just disagree.
yeah. I can only imagine what it'd be like if GTA 6 fails, as well when that comes out.
Look, I am firmly of the opinion that there is room in the world for all of it,
Mm,
right? I'm not here to talk shit on anyone's effort to create something of their own. I
mm,
don't care if it's in direct competition with me or whatever I'm making. And especially in the position that I'm in, I am not in direct competition with any franchise project.
mm,
I end up in direct competition with other people as an actor because, for example, there are certain actors, whether it's in the New York scene or in Hollywood in general, that are around my age, around my type, look kind of similar, have a similar-ish vibe,
mm,
and we are often in direct competition with each other. Like they're casting a film or a TV show, and it's down to three people, and often those are going to be three similar people, right? Um, People that I know or that I've been in competition with before. And I put competition in air quotes because I think the normal way of looking at it is, well, three of you went in for that role and only one of you got it. That person won. And
mm,
I think at my age and been doing this as long as I have for 15 years professionally full time, I'm actually not in direct competition with anyone on earth. I'm in
mm,
direct competition with myself to be better than I was the day before.
yeah.
And otherwise, the choices that are made to hire that guy or girl over me are actually usually not about something I can control.
Mm,
They're often about things like that person lives in LA. We don't want to pay to move you. So you guys are great. You're both good for the role. Neither of you is bad. It's not like they gave it to a shitty person. They
mm,
just gave it to them because they saved 20 grand not having to pay for flights and an apartment for 6 months and blah, 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 blah. Or they say that guy's 5'11 and you're only 5'9 and our leading lady's 5'10. So he's always going to be taller than her.
mm,
You go, cool. I can't do anything about that. I could wear lifts, I guess, but
mm,
like the reality is that's not me, right?
yeah.
So when people talk about something like um, GTA 6 and comparing it, I get why, particularly because our CEO's former relationship with that company and however he wants to manage that relationship and that narrative, that's for him. But I look at it as like, I hope they're successful. To me, the A rising tide lifts all boats. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
And so if a game like that comes out, does well, and in fact, to some extent sets a model that's like, we knew at various stages that it wasn't ready, so we waited. I would actually rather a precedent be set of like, wait, like get it
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
like release
yeah.
the thing right,
Keep delaying it
right?
until it's ready. Yeah.
And that's exactly right. And beyond all of that, I'm just not here to wish ill on anybody else for the sake of my own success. I actually don't think that that is a way that the world should function. So
Mhm.
I wish them success, if for no other reason than the gaming environment as a whole becomes healthier because people are like, wow, what a triumphant, successful thing. Games are fucking awesome. Maybe there's more of them. Maybe it consolidates power at the top. I'm not smart enough to like clairvoyantly see the whole future, right?
Mhm.
But I also am not interested in trying to bring somebody else down.
Mhm.
So I hope that it goes well.
Yeah. No, of course.